Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Ursa and this is a 10k special. It's a Q&A session. Thank you all for submitting your questions. I'm not gonna, for many reasons, which I'm not gonna make apparent now, I'm not gonna make too much of an intro to this, and I'm gonna dive in to a set of questions as given to me by you, the audience. Thank you again for subscribing and getting me to 10k. It was really, really kind of you. Let's answer your questions. Dad Tito asks, what games do you play when you're not playing Civ? So I tend to play things that aren't the 4Xs when I'm not playing Civ, because I play a lot of 4X, and yeah, I just need something different when I'm not playing it. So I've been playing a lot of Raft. That's quite a good game. That's a good multiplayer one. And Sea of Thieves. Oh, Sea of Thieves is so much fun. We play a lot of stuff with like multiplayer with friends, and I've got like an Xbox Pass, so we kind of pick up things that are on that. But yeah, Sea of Thieves is really, really good fun. I think I like Sea of Thieves because it's a bit of an equalizer. You've got this objective of just larking about the sea, but then nobody can really do anything very well. You all have to gang together, and then you can fire each other out of cannons and then throw up whilst drinking loads of grog. So what isn't there to like, really, you know? It's a really good one. So Portland has asked a question that he's curious about and didn't want to be in the Q&A, but I'm going to answer it anyway. What's your history, if any, of board games, CCGs, RPGs, tabletop minigames, and other non-video games geekery? So you probably know that I play a lot of D&D. I've always played D&D for the last sort of few years, and I did put it up on the channel for a while, so that's exciting. The D&D stuff is all still there, technically. I think I put it onto a different channel after a while, but yeah, so I play a lot of D&D. Back when I was really young, I had Warhammer 40k. I think I had the Space Elves, the good ones. Were they the Eldar, from memory? I remember I think they were the Eldar, and I was quite young at the time. I had no money, which when you're collecting Warhammer is a bad thing, because Warhammer probably costs more per gram than just like owning gold. I'm pretty sure it's got that expensive now. So I basically just had some basic minis, and I can't paint, right? This is going to be a theme for you. I have no creative skills whatsoever. I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't make music, and none of this stuff is existed. So my Eldar, they kind of had bright coloured like clown suits. It was like, you know, yellows and blues and greens, and oh, they were absolutely horrendous. I loved them. Also, can you please explain East Anglia for non-Brits? Yes, East Anglia is the most magical place. If ever you've imagined like Hobbiton in Lord of the Rings, East Anglia is that to the UK, except it's a bit flatter and it's a lot more inbred. It's when you look at the UK, you know, you've got the bit of Wales, which is on the left. It's the big sticky out bit on the left before Cornwall, above Cornwall. East Anglia is the bit on the right, on the other side. So we're the bit that always used to get invaded by the Vikings when, you know, when we were still hunting ground and that sort of thing. East Anglia is very flat, it's very quiet, and it's full of old people, and it's wonderful. It's really good. I love it. It's very sleepy. Jono asks, what non-gaming things get you excited in real life? So, at the moment, which is very exciting, the Six Nations is on, which is the rugby that us Brits get very excited in, and England just got whooped by Scotland, which is not very fun. So that's not fun. So I watch a lot of rugby. I used to watch Formula 1 back when I could afford it, and now I can't. I don't think anyone can afford it these days. So that's kind of my sporting stuff. I juggle. I do a lot of juggling. I haven't juggled in a while, but I need to get back. I need to get back into juggling. Why am I not juggling? Come on. That's a really good thing. I was really clumsy, by the way. I couldn't catch and throw things. I used to bump everything, and juggling really helped, so that's cool. Yes, right, sorry. I could see somebody in chat. Yes, I know you kept the cup. Can I just say, right? Yeah, you probably deserved it. It was a terrible, terrible game from England's point of view. Well, things get exciting me in real life, though. I love the Lake District. I love walking. I love hill walking. I love fell walking. And, you know, actually, Scotland, it kind of embraces all of those things, really. Scotland likes whiskey and hill walking as well. So really, it's a shame that England and Scotland have this rivalry, because actually, out of the two, both are really cool countries, really. I love being outdoors, generally, is the sort of answer there. Gwendelmar asks, how do I get good enough to play on Deity? Well, it's practice, being honest. I think the main things about Deity is if you want to watch a guide, that tends to help. I've got guides. You know, haha, you see, seamless link. How I learned to play on Deity was trial and error. I just continued to play and play and play and play. And when I first started, I was terrible at it. I used to be a pretty strict king and emperor player. I had to start learning to play on Deity because people like watching it on YouTube. For whatever reason, you are all very snobby about that, and that's fine. The main tips I could give you are builders. Normally the big difference between somebody who can win on Deity and somebody that doesn't is that you don't use builders to improve all your tiles. Every tile you own in your empire should be improved, and if it's in farms, you generally should have all the other tiles around them improved as well. So builders are a big thing. And always remember that if you can make it into the future age, you've won. Because after a while, the AI forgets to play Civ. The game gets so complicated that even if you're behind going into like turn 250, you'll probably still win if you're still a fundamentally strong empire at that point, because the AI cannot catch up with you. You are cleverer. Just trust yourself. Johnny! Hello, Johnny. You're getting a chance to respec your life. You have 30 skill points to split out between the following categories. Max 10 per category. It's like a proper person builder. I love it. How do you split it and why? Physical ability skills, social skills, tech skills, domestic skills, and artistic skills. Well, quite clearly, my artistic skills are going to be 0 because I have no drawing or musical ability. Oh no, actually, hang on. I'd probably give myself like a base 2 points because I feel like I can tell a good story. I do a lot of DMing, so in Dungeons and Dragons, so I'll do that. That's probably fine. Physical ability, I'm quite tall. So I'm a big unit, but I'm not very. I can't get very far. So maybe I give myself like 4 in that one. Social skills, yeah. I like to think the dad humor makes up for the fact that I'm terrible in social situations. So maybe I'll give myself a 4 or 5 for that one. YouTube's great, by the way, for that. So like, yeah. If you feel like you're funny, but you hate being in big groups, or you find social situations a little awkward when everyone's shouting at each other in a pub and everyone's had a drink, YouTube's great for that, because you can be yourself and then you can edit yourself down to all the good bits. It's wonderful. Tech skills. So he's put social media, coding, general savviness, okay? Generally, I'm not savvy at all. I have to learn, so I'm going to give myself a 5 because I've dredged that up. But I'm terrible at this sort of thing. And I'm going to give myself 9 out of 10 for domestic skills, which is going to make my wife smile when she listens to this back. But I think I'm a good cook, and I can be organised when I need to be. I just choose not to be a lot of the time. And then I'm going to give myself 0 for counting skills, because I've actually forgotten how many points I've just dished out to myself. Inquisitive Otter! Fish and chips or a cheeseburger and fries every day. Cheeseburger and fries. I know. Scandalous Brit saying that, but you can't beat a burger. Specifically because the veggie alternatives to burgers are a lot better than the veggie alternatives to fish. I know. Scandalous. Oh, how tall? Not that tall. 6 foot. 6 foot and a tiny bit. It's the tiny bit is like important when people ask. Whatever like 6 foot is in centimeters, I'm like 1 centimeter taller. Hyper! Do you like foxes? Asking for a friend. Well, you can tell your friend Hyper that I love foxes. Actually, one of the small benefits to living in London when you don't particularly like living in London is that the urban foxes are very cute, and we had loads of urban foxes around where we lived, and they reminded me very much of the crack fox from Mighty Boosh, which always used to make me smile. I love foxes, they're great. High Fives asks, have you ever played the scenarios like the Black Plague or World War II Australia scenarios? If so, do you have any tips? No, I've never played any of the scenarios. I have 3,000 hours in Civ 6, and I have not touched a scenario once. I'm really bad at picking up things and actually playing everything. It's terrible. I have games on my shelf I've never touched. I will at some point, and when I do, I'll play it to death. But I'm terrible at picking things up. I haven't played what's the Red Death scenario? The one where you're chasing each other around a map? I haven't played that either. It's terrible. I need to. I really need to. But so no, I can't help you with that. I have no tips. Cap Circle 16. Why did you keep going with YouTube when the views weren't there? And how good does it feel now you've kept with it? That's a really good question. And people ask about starting on YouTube and all of this, and it's a really, really, really tough one. You have to, I think I've said this before, you have to go into YouTube knowing that it might not succeed, and you have to do it because you love it. Because for me, I think I've mentioned this before, it was like 4 or 5 years. I started the channel in February 2015, and the first time I got more than 100 views in a day was in November 2019. So I had been doing YouTube for almost 5 years before I had more than 100 views in a day. So you have to be ready for that. Not everybody is an instant success, and I'm still not an instant success. I'm getting there slowly, but surely, and I'm, do I feel good about it? Yes. Yes, I really do. It's very surreal, being honest, because I've done YouTube for way longer than I have, like with no one watching, than I have with people watching. So it's really surreal, but it's very, very good, and I'm very grateful that everybody does watch. It's nice. It's nice. No Refunds ask, what Civilization's music is your favorite? I don't play with the Civilization music on. I actually have no game music when I'm playing, and that was because back in Civ 5, all of the Civilization music used to be copyrighted. So all of my old videos have copyrights against them. I'm sure I could do something about it. I probably should do something about that. But the game music in Civ 6, I don't think is copyrighted. I think they did fix that. But I think by the time I realized that, I'd already got into the habit of playing the beautiful piano music that everybody knows and loves and associates with my channel because of audio reasons, to stop the sort of popping and clicking noises that you can hear a little bit, and to mute. Back when I used to first film, all of the audio was really interfered by the fact that London was really loud. I had traffic out my window, I had planes going over, there was a bell that used to ring. Actually, if you listen to some of my earlier games, when I used to play Civ 5, there used to be a bell from a church that was just over the road that used to go every time I used to try and film, and it was the most ridiculously annoying thing. So no, I've never actually played the background music. I kind of just never got around to it, so sorry. What do you feel like after running your channel for years and having spontaneous growth since 2020? So there may be a little bit of overlap on questions here. That's Snuffly Lewis. Yes, it's mad. I can't get my head around it, and it is still spontaneous. Like, even the views I've had in the last 2 months are like way above what I've had in the year preceding that. So like, I don't understand where it's all coming from. It's surreal, really surreal. I think the general thing I'm trying to do is set myself up in a way where I know the content I'm making is good, and I know the platforms and the support is in place now, so that when the growth does go up, I don't really have to change anything. That's the biggest thing I'm having to look at the moment. But it's weird. It's really weird. USST asks, are you a Chad? I actually have no idea. Hang on. I'm going to show my age. I think I know what a Chad is. Apart from a country. Yeah, it's a country in Central America, isn't it? No, I'm not a country. Sorry, I'm a person. I said America, didn't I? I meant Africa. This is the problem I have, right? So I suffer from a thing, which is not a condition, it's just me being useless, where I will read something and my brain will read it and I will repeat it and my voice will say something totally different. So I read Africa and said America there, which gets me in all sorts of trouble when you're playing a game full of countries and pronunciations, and people hear that stuff. They always do. You can never slip it by, can you? McClaudius asks, if you could have a unique Civ based on you, what would the bonuses, unique building, etc. be? We all know this, right? Civ 6 is a railway simulator. I would clearly be an English leader with a railway-based theme. I think everyone can build railways, including builders. I think railways don't cost any resource. I think they give tile improvements. I think they double the speed. And I think that everything to do with railroads would be cool. I've actually asked this a few times, and I believe that railroads, unfortunately, in Civ, are... what was the term for it? It's like hard-locked, or like locked behind the actual game software. So there is stuff you can mod, and there is stuff that you can't. Hard-coded, that's it. And railways tend to be all hard-coded, which is a real pain. So if I could... that's what I would be. I would be a railway master. Sinjik asks, who or what inspires your style of humour? I've been older than my years for some time now. I have dad joke humour. I'm not a dad, but I know dads. I find their humour quite funny. So there you go. That's literally it. To be fair, I actually don't try and put on a particular style of humour when I do this channel. Being honest, I am just the same stuff comes out of my mouth on this than it does with the people I know. And basically all of my jokes involve base sarcasm or puns or general wordplay that is normally uninspired and not very funny. Redacted even follows this up and says, do your dad jokes stem from the way you dress? What? My dress sense is lovely, thank you. I am a young whippersnapper. Jono asks, where do we sign up for the Ursa School of Mispronunciation? I said pronunciation right today. I didn't say pronunciation. So, you know, we learn. I don't know. I honestly don't know why I say things the way I do. And for whatever reason, and I think this is a funny one, right? If I had a European accent, for instance, I think people would give me a little bit more slack. But because I sound all posh-like, people go at me for when I say things wrong. Oh dear, I actually don't know why I speak like this. I think I've always struggled a little bit when I was younger with being eloquent. I used to do a lot of those, what's the term for it when you say lots of like buts and ums and sort of, you can't get your words out properly. It wasn't a stutter. It wasn't as strong as a stutter, but my brain is never quite linked to it. And I've always struggled to spell, actually. That is a weird one. So when I was younger, I used to have very phonetic spelling. So if I were to read a word, I would say it in my head differently, and then I would write it based on how I say it. And I could never remember all of the tricks to how to, remember all your words and things. So yeah, it's always been a bit of a weird thing for me. To be honest, most people that know me find it quite endearing. And I'm hoping people find it more endearing than annoying. But yeah, I can't really teach that one. Just watch the channel enough and either it'll infuriate you or you'll become just like me. Emma asks, favorite there you go, favorite playthrough. Favorite playthrough. Mine was your Berserk Barbarian Sieve game. Are we going for Skivia or Sieve? Again, I'm going to say Sieve this time. Favorite playthrough. That's a good one. I think probably I did a game for Potato McWhiskey's channel, and it was a hungry game, and I had in my head this idea. I was like, right, Potato's on holiday. I've got one chance to put something out that people will enjoy. I needed to come up with something that was a bit different, not just a regular game, like a really fun thing. So I was like, right, hungry, quick domination playthrough, sub 100, it can be done, let's do it. And I did it, and the game worked first time I recorded it. And when I edited it together and I gave it to him, and it went up on his channel, and it's now got like 110,000 views or something mad, that's my favorite playthrough. I was pretty content with how that all played out. BPW Whirl. You can approach this question from whatever perspective you like. Personally, professionally, whatever. But how do you, Ursa Ryan, define success? Interesting one. I've worked in London, and London, like many financial capitals around the world, it defines success by being able to flash money around wine bars, seemingly, with watches and suits. Yeah, it's never really worked for me. Success, weirdly enough, and as you get older, I think you have longer to think about this sort of stuff, and certainly, like, us personally, myself and my wife, we do a lot of soul searching on this sort of stuff, and I'm realizing as I get older, success for me is just being happy. Sounds corny, I know, but for me, like, happiness is freedom to do what I want. It's flexibility to do it when I want, and not feeling like I'm being trapped or forced into anything. So for me, that's kind of what I aim for in life. And YouTube's fun because I can do it at my own time and at my own pace. So that's kind of always been the appeal for me, really. Happiness. I think that's a good answer. A4 Angus asks, should everyone watching like and subscribe? Yeah. In all seriousness, yes. Because if you don't, the algorithm won't support me. There you go, Eugorithm. Got another one there. The Eugorithm. You should also join the Discord. Yes, you should do that too. Actually, this is a valid point. I have a lot of people on Discord now. Like, what do I do with them? Shall I get them all to like give me money? Do I extort them? Feels like a lot of people. Oh dear, the power. Oh yeah, following that on. Here we go. Johnny again. I've always wanted to support you financially, but I don't know where to do that. Can you point me in the right direction? Well, Johnny, what a question. In all seriousness, Patreon is a wonderful, wonderful space. If you can and want to support, that's where to do it. But don't feel like you have to. If you can't, which is totally fair, you should maybe consider subscribing. Because in all seriousness, so one of the main things that I've noticed about getting to the 10k subscriber mark, it's really weird, but your stuff gets recommended by YouTube more. Like, there was this weird spike as I hit around that number. I've seen this put on a lot of threads. You know, I've done a lot of research about how to grow your YouTube channel in 2021 and all this stuff. You know, I do all of the like clickbaity videos and I watch all that to try and get any hint I can. And as you get more popular on YouTube, I think YouTube sees you as a bit more of a safe pair of hands. So yeah, when I got to 10k, it just seemed like I was being recommended a little bit more, which is really, really weird. So if you haven't subbed, honestly, it works really well. Aethor Angus asks, should the discipline card work against Scotland? No, Scotland are not barbarians. They're lovely people with whiskey and Kayleys. Do Kayleys, people. It's good for you. You meet people, you get fit, and if you're lucky, you have your shoes stamped by someone much heavier than you. No, I love Kayleys. I honestly do. Oh, we did this rock Kayley once in Edinburgh. Oh, that was great. Like proper heavy music with it. I recommend fully. Shape Mismatch asks, would you ever consider moving on from Civ? Folks have been playing this for over half a decade, it's true actually. There is a lot more of that question. Thank you. I think a lot of this is basically is asking, like, how do you keep it fresh? Genuinely, it's really, really easy. I found this, I'm very lucky actually. The game I play, it's not like Fortnite, which is a very short game that you play quickly. Like how long is a game of Fortnite? Like 20 minutes or something? A lot of the battle royales are that sort of time frame. Civ, I mean, what does a good game of Civ take? Like anywhere between 3 and 7 hours, depending on what victory you're going for and the size of the map you go for. So Civ is a game where the beginning strategies are so different to the end strategies. Like when you're having to deploy rocket artillery and bombers around the map compared to your first settler and where to settle, it's such a different game. And because there are so many hours between the beginning and the end of the game, like, you almost forget. So Civ is quite fun. Like, every game feels a little bit new and it's a little bit fresh. And I honestly think one of the joys of Civ is that there are so many Civs and so many win conditions and so many maps. The permutations are huge. And there are so many mods as well that I actually have, like, somewhere in my desk drawer, there is an A4 page of video ideas I've got, and I've probably scratched about 3 of them off since I made it. And there's a good 70 or 80 of them there. So no, I genuinely don't have a problem making Civ content. There's lots of stuff out there. Would I consider moving on from Civ? Absolutely, but I would only think to do that, I think, in a more gradual way. I wouldn't just sort of snap the rope and fall like that. On a related note, how do you feel about Humankind? I've never played it, and I've actually never watched someone play it. I have been so busy with Civ that I just never got around to it. I must confess that there's different sorts of YouTubers. You get people who are much more willing to embrace new games and new content and give it a go, and you get others that are a bit more timid and they see which way the water's going. And I was a bit busy at the time, so I sort of let Humankind happen and watched other people play it. And I could see that people weren't really jumping on it as much as Civ, and so I never really got round to doing it. There's no judgment on Humankind. It looks like a really cool game, but I just have never got round to it. So yeah, again, I'd spend too long floating around on a raft trying not to get eaten by a shark than I do playing Humankind. Maybe that's a flaw of my part. I have also heard that about Humankind. It's being pointed out quite rightly that DLC does come in and improve the game. If you remember Civ, Every Civ release ever. I mean, how much does the game get improved by DLC? A lot. I mean, Gathering Storm pretty much saved Civ 6 from a very, like, a good but unsatisfying, like, package. I think Gathering Storm really wrapped it together, and perhaps Humankind just needed that. So maybe you never know, maybe Humankind will get really good and I'll be diving into it. Who knows? Which city-state, this is KP, would you be most/least likely to declare war on rather than keeping and chasing suzerainty over? Suzerainty. Here we go. Basically, which one would you keep and which one would you try and match with? I think it's easy, right? What other city-state in the game gives you that same joy as Auckland? Gotta be Auckland. You're playing Auckland. What's that? Extra production on every sea tile in your empire, every coast tile in your empire. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But there are candidates. I like Valletta. Valletta's beautiful. Oh, because I always play so heavily with Faith. So seeing Valletta pop up is absolutely wonderful. Kamasi. I love Kamasi. Huge culture and I think, does it give, off the top of my head, gold? It's culture and gold, isn't it? Those are really good. What ones don't I like? There's a few that never really grab my attention. Like, is it Leventa with the colossal heads? I think it's, yeah, I might be wrong with that one, but it's really good, but I never get around to building them, so I never get too excited about it. And I think Singapore, is Singapore the one that gives production on trade routes? I think that one, again, I see it pop up and I never think immediately to be like, oh yeah, go and grab that one, that's really, really good. It tends to be like, yeah, a little bit weird. So yeah, I don't think there's any that I dislike, but certainly those don't get my excitement budding. Rochechi asks, have you travelled much in your life so far? And if so, where to? And where would you like to visit in future? You record your videos early in the morning. That's true, I do. What does your morning schedule look like typically? Why is Petra the best wonder? Here we go. Best wonder in the game. Do you have a favourite show, movie, book, or album that never fails to bring you joy? Okay, a lot of questions, so we're going to go short answers on this one. Have I travelled much? Not really. I've travelled a lot of Europe. I've probably done a good dozen countries in Europe, but I've never left Europe apart from one time I went to Barbados. So really not very travelled. I would love to travel more. Just never got around to it. My morning schedule pretty much looks like I get up about 6 o'clock in the morning to do an hour or an hour and a half of editing and recording pretty much every day before work. And then normally, once work's done, I might do an hour in the evenings, but otherwise I kind of wedge it to the weekends. Tends to be when I do a lot of my stuff. Is it a time drain? Yes. Yes, it is. Do I have a favourite show, book, movie, or album that never fails to bring you joy? Yes. Lots of things. I think it all gets wrapped up into probably, over the years, the one thing that's given me the most joy is probably either Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. Sounds, I know, a bit sort of faffy, but I'm just thinking back to when I was a kid and all the way through teenagehood and young adulthood. And I think those pretty much tick show, movie, books, and albums, don't they? So, yeah, brilliant. So Sega asks, and this is, I said I'd try and answer everything I could. I'm not going to give full information because it's a bit confusing, but sort of a personal question. How much money do you make from YouTube now? It's really difficult to actually give a full answer to that. Not enough is the brute truth of it. If I did this right now, it wouldn't be enough to sustain me. I think, generally speaking, YouTube is a decent earner if you're willing to put time and effort into it, and you've got, like, I mean, I put 50,000 subs as like the marker, because having done the maths based on what I'm seeing, I think based on the content that I put up, I honestly think that's probably a marker for what would be a really decent, like, living wage that you could have a career and a family on. Do you know what I mean? Like, not just like a minimum wage, oh, I'm just hustling. Like, I think that seems to be the sort of point in my head where it makes perfect sense. It's difficult because YouTube it fluctuates really, really heavily. I'd like, for instance, my earnings in January per click, or like per 1,000 views, or however they work it out, was a third lower than December, because no one advertises in January. You know, you get all the Thanksgiving and all the Christmas adverts and all that stuff that gets piped through into November and December, and then when January comes around, the earnings just like gabloom. So it's really bad. And does YouTube take all the earnings? No, not really. Well, it does. Like, So what YouTube does is that they obviously get paid by advertisers to advertise before the videos. So when you watch my videos and sometimes you see adverts, that's YouTube doing that, not me. I don't go to all of the advertisers independently and sort that out. YouTube does that. And they pass, I think they say 55% of all of their earnings to the content creators, and they keep 45% for themselves. Make of that what you will in terms of fairness. For me, I've got no real complaint with that. Those are the rules, aren't they? So you just have to sort of play with it. And how much money do you make from YouTube? It's a really tough one because it does fluctuate massively. And that's sort of why Patreon is often plugged quite a lot. It's much more regular. I know how much is coming from that because I can see how many people are joined. And it is the same every month, and it's much more stable. So even not just in my particular circumstances, but when you watch other YouTubers that maybe are a little bit further down the professional line and they're making more, that's often why they still flag things like Patreon, because it's much more predictable, especially like people that have staff or dependents or whatever it is. Like, I think it's much more predictable. So there you go. I hope that gives you some information. Maybe I should do a video sometime on how it was for me making a channel, what it looks like. Maybe a bit different, but maybe people would watch it. Could you tell us a crazy travel story? I haven't got a name for this one, unfortunately. This might be Sega, actually, still. Or maybe a crazy college story, or maybe just a crazy story. A crazy travel story. Well, it's a story when I was abroad. It's a bit gross, but it's probably the best one I've got in my head. It was one of the first holidays we did. We went to Nice in France, southern France. Lovely place. Really enjoyed it. I learnt a lesson in Nice. Very sunny country, France. Beautiful. Lots of sun. Much more sun than I'm used to. I'm very pale. I don't tan very well. And I discovered on that trip, when you're on the beach, and you're like me, you're a bit immature, you like splish-splashing into the sea and out of the sea, you learn a very valuable lesson, which is sun cream, which is very good. Fit factor 50, very strong. Protects you from all the sun. It doesn't really do well with the sea. It might wipe off, and it doesn't matter if you apply it every 2 hours, because if you're going in and out of the sea every 10 minutes, then you need to put it on every 10 minutes. And I didn't, and I was on my front for quite some time, and by the time my wife noticed, my back was bubbling, which was fun, and I don't think I got to sleep for a good 70 hours. I don't think I've ever had anything close to that in my life. Like, it was horrific. It was like... It wasn't like, it was kind of half pain, but it was itching. Itching is the worst. Every time I laid down to go to bed and to go to sleep, it would itch and I couldn't switch off. And I think I had, so this was in Game of Thrones territory. I think I had maybe the 4th or the 5th Game of Thrones book. So one of the big chunks, right? No, we're beyond like, you know, the King's one and all this. So we're into the big Dance with Dragons territory. And I think I read like 900 pages of that book in about 2 days because I couldn't sleep. Every time I laid down, I would just not be able to switch off. And I was so starved of sleep at the end, I basically just collapsed in bed and finally went to sleep. But that's the craziest travel story I've got. Wear sun cream, waterproof sun cream. The sea is horrible. The sun is worse. Don't trust the sun with your money or with your back. Yeah, bubbling. I think it was like, I don't want to go into too much detail, but I think it was some sort of like blister caused by the heat. Well, it's actually making me like itch just thinking about it. Ugh. Ha, this is a good one. Why do you have so little hair on your head? Any tips for people younger than you just starting to lose hair? Okay, I'm going to answer this as a silly question and then as a serious question. So, my family are rubbish, right? They've left me no hair. That's basically it. In all seriousness, though, it is a really tricky thing. I think I was probably 23, 24 when maybe the first signs of like it disappearing on the top was starting, but I didn't really notice it properly until maybe like 26 when it was becoming apparent. And it was a real problem for me when I was young, right? Like little tiny Ursa, he was cute and fluffy, and I was called Blondie. That was my actual nickname because I had shock white hair and it was scruffy and I looked like Prince Charming. I think I looked like Prince Charming. I didn't look anything like Prince Charming. I was way too weird, but it was a big thing. Like my blonde hair was like a huge part of my personality and my character, I guess you could say. So when I lost it, it was heartbreaking. And genuinely, it probably took me a good 2 years, I think, between really accepting that it was being lost to being comfortable with it. Yeah, it's a really weird one. Like, I genuinely struggled to accept it for a while. Have you ever had that thing? And I think as you get older, I think this is more common. So people watching this maybe a little bit further down the road, I think you might understand a little bit. But when you look at a mirror and what you're looking at doesn't match up with what's in your head, I really had that. I struggled with that because every time I saw myself with short hair and missing, I wasn't looking like, you know, the Ryan that I was remembering. So it was really, really tough. And it took a long time, a lot of encouragement and a lot of positivity from people around me to kind of get over it. And for me personally, so advice, you have to deal with it rather than just ignoring it. So for me, it was going very short, but it was also becoming quite humorous about it. I had to genuinely tackle it as an issue and say, you know what? It's happening. I'm going to laugh about it and I'm going to make it a funny thing. And I used to joke about it all the time and still do. People must get sick of it. But for me, it was all a part becoming this new norm in my head. And I can guarantee you now that when I look in the mirror now, I see Ryan again. It took a few years, but it happened. It's a different Ryan to young Ryan, but you'll get there. It's all good. What's the background to the Ursa Ryan handle and how is it different from the real Ryan Cook? Thank you, Lord Paulie. What a question. Well, Ursa Ryan, I knew I wanted a name on YouTube that wasn't just my name, right? I thought that was going to be, it just wasn't quite doing it for me. And if you ever have to make a name for something, it's like making a band name, isn't it? It's like, right, we're going to make a band. What should it be called? And you all look around and look to each other and it's like, we've got no idea. No idea at all. So Ursa came from the fact that animal-wise, I've always liked bears. Like, bears are cool. Pandas and polar bears and sun bears and all sorts of bears, right? You know, not koala bears. I don't think they're bears. Australians can probably correct me, but I don't think they're bears. So I've always liked them. And it just coincides with the fact that there's only a few constellations in the Northern Hemisphere sky that I can recognise. And one of them is Orion's Belt, because, you know, Orion. And it's 3 stars in a straight line, right? That's an easy one. And there was also the Plough, which in the Northern Hemisphere, it looks like a bit of like a pan lid or like a wheelbarrow, I guess you sort of look at it. But when you're looking at the Plough, I used to be a scout when I was younger, and we did some stargazing and stuff, and someone told me from a very young age that if you took, so not the handle, but the other end of the Plough, and you take the 2 stars on the right, they point upwards towards Polaris, which is currently the North Star. And I always used to think, wow, that's really cool, I know where the North Star is, so I used to be able to pick the North Star out in the sky, and the Plough, I found later, was called Ursa Major. So there we go, that is an actual star constellation. So that was the reason why I picked Ursa. I just was like bears and, oh, that kind of linked. So there we go. I originally called the channel Ursa Berserkers because originally, back when we first started, there was the idea that me and a few friends were all going to do channels of the same sort of like club effectively. So there'd be Ursa this and Ursa that and Ursa that. But in the end, it was only me that sort of not followed through. That's a mean way of putting it. I was the only idiot that sort of continued with it when life got in the way. And in the end, the Berserkers bit got dropped and I just sort of picked Ryan back up because I was like, there's this thing, isn't there, that I become famous. If you do get successful, do you want to be called the same thing as your actual name or do you want it to be totally different? And I always had that question in my head and I was like, I'd rather just be called Ryan because I'd be terrible if you were like, oh, Greg, and I was not reacting to Greg. Do you know what I mean? I think I'd be terrible with a second name. So I was like, okay, just use Ryan. It's easier. NTG Golfman asks, how much of the strategy involved that you now use applies to the base game? I picked up Civ 6 for 3 and can't afford to purchase the DLC, and I'm wondering if you had any good quick tips for me. So, it's a good question. I think that I try and spice it up a little bit. Sometimes the new options and some of the DLC, they do change, like Secret Societies. Oh no, actually, obviously Secret Societies and a lot of the game modes apply to the base game, don't they? So it's the DLC, Gathering Storm, and yeah, a lot of what I do applies to that. I'm thinking if I had to play the base game these days, it would be a little bit of transition. I like to think it would be like muscle memory, in the sense that a lot of it would come back quite quickly, but I can't promise that would be the case. Gathering Storm did change the game a huge amount, and even like Rise and Fall with the eras and with the governors and all this sort of stuff, that changed it massively as well. I think tips-wise, if you're going to play the base game with none of that stuff, I fall back on my original advice. Builders are key. You have to improve. You have to improve all of your land. It just makes sense, right? You're leaving yields unimproved. You're leaving resources. Kind of makes sense. And making sure you get 2 of a strategic, I think, works really well as well. Is that still a rule in the game? There used to be the thing where you had to have 2 horses, and then you could make horsemen anywhere. And if you only had 1, you could make it in an encampment. I think it was something like that. So yeah, builders. I think builders are really, really a good go-to on any version of the game that you use, because you have to make sure that all of your land is improved. And to that as well, chop. If you're not sure, chop it. Get rid of it. Give yourself the one-off boost, because often it's better, especially after after turn 100, something like that. It's well worth chopping something. Like forest on a hill, get rid of it. Rainforest, get rid of it. Rock or stone, get rid of it. It just... really good advice. Okompa asks, will you start joining all of the high-profile Civ 6 YouTuber events? There are high-profile events I don't get invited to? It's the first I've heard of them. I'll join any event I can. I think I've mentioned this before, though, but my main limitations at the moment are time, which is a big thing because I work, and also I live outside of American time zones. A lot of things, get put in American time, so it can be a little tricky from that point of view, but internet speed is a big one for me. I'm hoping at some point either I'll move or the infrastructure will come to me, but where I am at the moment, my broadband speed is good enough to upload on YouTube reliably and to do things like this, but like Twitch is a no-go really at the moment. And when I play multiplayer, now would it be fair to say, everybody here, that multiplayer Civ can be a temperamental beast at times, and when you add in different regions, more people, and bad connections, the disconnecting events can become a bit of a problem. And I did notice a theme where when I was playing multiplayer, the games would be tragically bad. The disconnects are terrible, and I was doing some multiplayer filming with some other YouTubers, and it was just awful, and I felt so bad for them that I sort of went into exile. So I will do it at some point, but a few things have to change my side before we really do too much of that. But I'll always be on like podcasts and stuff and video chats, and I'd love to crash other people's streams. Yeah, that'd be cool. Glenn Deagle asks, what Civ 6 leader do you most relate to? Oh, that's a good question. Which one do I most relate to? I think it's got to be Vicky, because who else can build railroads like she can? What a legend. It's a terrible answer, I know, but I'm actually struggling on which one do I relate to? The problem is, right, is all the Civ 6 leaders are cool, independent leaders of nations. They've done stuff. I just sort of play computer games. It's not a very fair for them. Speed answer time. Sega asks, what do you think of playing a 1x1 game with your wife and posting it on your channel? Is that a good idea? It would be a good idea. I wouldn't inflict it on her because, Civ 6 is a very long game and my wife's time is too precious. He also asks, when you're asleep, are your dreams about Civ 6 or American taxes? It changes depending on whether I have a sense of impending doom about my job or not. Obi asks, to Petra or not to Petra? If there is no Petra in dessert, I think. It's not just me getting it wrong. Haha. Then when I end my turn, I want to go to where the Petra is. This is a bit of a running joke. I don't really dislike Petra that much. I just think it's a bit pointless. Like it's a wonder. It's good. I enjoy it. You can have fun with the Petra City. I get that, but it's okay. Civ 5 Petra is better. That's all I'm saying. Nanagalactic asks, will you make any other tier lists, such as natural wonders or world wonders? Well, the problem with natural wonders and world wonders is that, it's all just so dependent on who you're playing and what you're trying to do. I don't know how you'd have to sub-tier, I'm playing culture victory, so what other natural wonders are good? I don't know. Maybe natural wonders I just don't really feel as much for. It just feels... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll do tier lists, but I'd have to get something that I'd be really interested in. Dad Tato asks, what is a perfect lunch to you? Whatever it is, it's lots of it. and it's tasty. Probably a cheese board. If I could pick anything with some smelly blue cheese, that would be great. The Chocolate Dude asks, which improvements features would you suggest to be incorporated into Civ 7? Well, I really liked the governors. I think that's really good. I would like to, in Civ 7, it would be great if you have a Civ's abilities. For instance, we've spoken about England quite a lot, so you get the Workshop of the World stuff. Wouldn't it be great if every country, a bit like the Ottomans did, had their own governor, where you could spend your governor promotions improving the things that Civ did? Wouldn't that be cool, right? So like France, Black Queen, she likes to spy. Maybe you put a governor in and she gets another 3 spy, or they all go up a level or something. Like, you can play the Civ as you want, or you can really, really focus in on the Civ stuff that they do. I don't know, I think that would work well in my head. Balancing would probably be all over the place. Dossie, or Docky, asks, where are you from? England. Norfolk, to be precise. It's very flat. It's very inbred. Quite lovely. Glendeagle asks again, what victory types should be added or removed in Civ 7? Do you think there should be more? Yes, I do think there should be more. I think the more game modes you add, the more chaos. I think I'll answer it with a different answer, which is whatever happens, I really, really wish in Civ 7 that all of the victory conditions, I really, really hope that they can all be won by the AI all the time. Like, you don't see the AI doing half the victory conditions. Like, when was the last time you saw the AI do a domination victory? In all seriousness, they might kill you every now and then, but you'll never see one go around sweeping up after everybody. Like, it just doesn't happen. So I think whatever victory conditions they go for, I really, really hope the AI fixes on them properly. Frederick asks, what would you like to see in Civ 7? Better AI. Honestly, I think that is the one thing between Civ 6 and perfection. If the AI was competent, then yeah, it would be wonderful. It's always the thing that reminds me that you're playing a game is watching an embarked AI horse naval attack your city Renaissance walls with no siege equipment. That's just the one thing you always see, and it goes, Civ hasn't changed really, have you? Gaiden X asks, do you still have time for D&D regularly? Do you still DM for it? And if so, how do you find the time? Yes, we did move online. That's part of the other question. Yeah, we did it via Zoom like most people did. We used to meet up every Monday after work, and it used to be the most amazing thing because I don't know if anybody else works 9 to 5, but Mondays suck. They're terrible. Weekends are better. And playing D&D every Monday used to be brilliant because it used to make you get into the week a little bit more. And yes, I still DM. The campaign we've been running has been going for 3.5 years now. They're all level 17. And the campaign probably will end in the next few months. Maybe, depending on what they do. They seem to enjoy it, so who knows. Dad Tato asks, what was the last play you were in? What was the last play I was in? I think I played like a quack doctor in The Diary of Samuel Pepys. I think it's that far. I think that was probably in primary school. I've managed to avoid plays since then because I hate them. I hate acting. I hate stages. Weird for a YouTuber, I know. I hate being in front of people. There you go. NTG Golfman asks again, how far into a game do you play before you can tell whether or not your start was good enough for you to succeed? Controversial opinion, I don't think the start really changes the game that much. I honestly think Deity is set up in such a way that if you can make it to about turn 200, even if you have a bad start, you will win. And I think if people were slightly less focused on good starts and more into playing adaptively into any game they're thrown into, I think you'd find probably the all-round ability of your game would improve a little bit. So I honestly, there's no start I pick that I don't go, I can win. It's just all about getting to about turn 200 and still being in the game. Map 3, I think that's not a 3, I'm so sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. Do you think it's a bit something? Yes, I do, that the Aboriginal Australians have never been represented in Civ despite being the oldest living culture. Yes, that's a fair point, I hadn't thought about it. Admittedly, Aboriginal Australian history is not the, go-to taught thing in British schools. I know disappointingly little about it, but no, that's fair enough. Probably something that should be in. Maybe more relevant than Curtin, bless him, but never mind. I like Australia, and yeah, I will always say yes to any Civ being in the game. Yanasek asks, are you in love with TSL maps? Absolutely, I love them. There's something just fun. It's like maybe the inner Risk player in me that's like, I like to see the world as it is and conquer it. Yes, yes. Nikto asks, are you okay? Can we do something nice for you? That's very kind. Make sure you're happy and that you're enjoying life so that I don't have to do anything for you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Now, honestly, just by like being around and watching the videos is enough. And if you really, really want to come and do something nice, come on Discord and say hello, because seeing people say hello honestly makes my day. Every time I see it, always makes my day. Sega asks, one more question. Can you do accents? Could you do one? Or maybe mimic someone famous? Oh, I can't do accents at all. If I tried this, I'd get into trouble. I think, no, I'm not gonna. I can just about pull off a semi-tragic Welsh and like maybe a sort of like Southern American, but yeah, it's not good. Okay, they're being asked about it on something else. Yeah, list of accents we'd love to hear Ryan try from Dad Tato. American, any flavour, Dwarven, Scottish, literally anything. So there's a program in the UK that is quite famous here. I don't know if it's gone abroad actually, called Gavin and Stacey, and Rob Brydon, who is a Welsh comedian, plays a funny. And he's sort of a little bit like that. It's a little bit sing-song Welsh. Talks about Baileys a lot. He gets very excited. I mean, it's terrible. I can't do it. You just have to sound like you're sort of a little bit whimsical. That's all you're getting. I'm sorry. Problem with Welsh, though, is it can drift quite quickly into Indian, and then you sound like you're taking the mick, and you really aren't. It's just that I can't do accents at all. Getting to the bottom of the list, here we go. Sega, have you ever received a brutal criticism about some aspect of your Civ 6 gameplay that you found valid and rectified? You know what, I do actually absorb comments, yes. If you're going to, and I say this not for me, but I say this for anybody on YouTube that makes content, if you want to give constructive criticism, try and make it nice and constructive and friendly. I think I'm much more likely to truly read and, you know, properly absorb something that comes across as being quite polite. Sometimes people can be quite brutal with their criticism, and generally I try not to read that stuff too much, because otherwise it's a bit like social media, isn't it? Like Twitter. These things can become quite like, yeah, it become a whirlwind of pain after a while. So yes, I do read comments quite a lot, and I read all my comments, to be fair, and I do improve my gameplay, and yes, I am a much better Civ player after you guys have sort of left me alone. Kalades asks, who would you like to collab with for a fun series? There are a group of YouTubers called Hat Films who work with the Yogscast, and I've luckily met them before at a Comic-Con. They're probably one of the first YouTube channels I started watching when I first got into YouTube. I properly nerd crush them. I'd love to work with them. Do you or have you ever considered doing Civ live streams? Why or why not? Yes, I've considered it. I've mentioned before, internet speed is my big problem at the moment. Fingers crossed we can get that sorted soon. Glendeagle asks again, what type of content would you make if there was no Civ 6? If there was no Civ 6, I would probably have gone into some other game I enjoyed making. I like making things where I can inflict a little bit of comedy into it. I did Skyrim for a long time, and people sort of semi-liked that. But I'd have to work on my style again, because you have to do something that's sort of more fun. I like a lot of the styles of videos when people put things together with a bit of a plot and a bit of humour to them. So I don't know what I'd make. The games I've really played hugely over the years have been like, and I hate to say it, but I did play a lot of Minecraft back in the day because I loved the creativity of it. So maybe I'd do that. Maybe I'd go into Fallout or Skyrim, or I don't know. That's a really good question. I'd have to think about it. Sega asks, when do I plan on becoming a full-time YouTuber? Soon as I can. Soon as I can, no. Whenever it becomes a possibility. I don't know. I'm not counting my chickens. I'm really not. But if it does come up, then I would. It's difficult because it can't be really predicted as to how these things work. Yeah, Minecraft isn't about... No, you're right. It's the multiplayer thing. Like, that's what gets me. Modded Minecraft it's really fun. Portland asks, if you could live in any part of the UK or indeed world, where would it be? God, I love the Lake District. If you ever holidayed here, you'll know why. It's beautiful. Jono asks, Terry Pratchett or Douglas Adams? So you've got the Discworld or the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy there. I love Terry Pratchett, I can't lie, and specifically Death. Anything Death is in just makes my day, like Mort or the Hogfather. Yeah, easily. Redacted asks, now that we have shorts, have you thought about doing longs? An unedited video of an episode to play along with? Ooh, that's an interesting one. Would you really want to see the live footage of what I did? Like, say if I put out maybe an hour's worth of series, I've probably done about 6 to 7 hours of filming. I mean, I don't know if my play is quite good enough to want to watch that. I don't know. Yeah, maybe, but I think, like, I don't know, it seems very long. I don't know, yeah. It's got to be one of those things where with a video file that size, it would take ages to put up onto YouTube, so it'd have to be watched, selfishly. Dad Tato asks, when is the Patreon D&D session tier announced? Well, if enough people asked for it, I would absolutely make a tier if you wanted to play or have me DM for you, but I mean, I can't say that you should because my DMing is nothing special. I'm no Matt Mercer or like, you know, Mark Hulmes, that's the name. He's really cool. Platypus asks, tacos or burritos? I think I like burritos. I kind of like the softness of it and the fact that it's always full of cheese. I mean, they're both full of cheese. I don't know why I said that. It's a terrible reason. Cinegangang asks, do you think Civ 6 will stand the test of time as much as 5 did once 7 comes out? And no matter what your answer is, would you still personally enjoy Civ 6 even after 7 releases, assuming it's good? That's an interesting one because I loved 5 and I thought I'd play it more. And I know lots of people do play it, but once 6 came out, I never looked back. I don't know. I honestly think when 7 comes out, 7 will probably either ruin 6 for me and Civ generally, and I'll play something else, or I'd switch to 7. Generally, I think that's probably what I'd ask. I've just seen another question over here quickly. What do I do for a living? I do tax. It's very boring. It's American tax. You Americans. I've never been to America. Interesting point. But I get told the place exists. Don't go. I hear it's very interesting. Very interesting. But no, I do American tax in Britain for Americans. It keeps me out of trouble. No, I do people's tax returns, so I don't really get involved with any of the planning or any sort of interesting stuff. I just sort of fill out the forms, really. It's interesting, but it's very similar work from a year to year. Grad asks, what inspired you to add the relaxing jazz to your videos? I think I mentioned this before in another video or some other time, but I used to film with a lot of background noise in the area, be it London traffic or a ringing church bell or people walking about. My microphone, I didn't have a shock absorber for it for quite a long time as well. It was just lying on the desk. So every time I used to like hit the desk, you would hear it rattle through the microphone, and I didn't have a proper pop shield and all this sort of stuff. So I used background music to hide a menagerie of sins, and it just became a thing, really. Nanagalactic asks, can we see your setup? Absolutely, if people really want to, I can show you my setup. I pretty much have one tower computer. I have 2 screens, one of which I play the game and one of which I do the nonsense. I have a Blue Yeti microphone that's held on a stand with a Blue Yeti shock absorber, and I have a sort of guard in front that stops like most of the blowing on it, or some of it anyway. And then after that I have a mouse and keyboard. It's really not that exciting. I'm thinking about getting a few extra pieces. Maybe I'll try and remember to put a picture in. I don't think I will because my editing is tragic, but if you ask me enough, I'll send you a picture sometime. Hyper asks, out of the 2 of you, bear and wife, that's a very funny way of putting it, but sure, who is the better half and why? Well, there's only one correct answer to that, really, isn't there? And it's me, because I've got 10,000 subscribers and she doesn't. I can hear her laughing in the other room. Dad Tato finally asks, what/who do you watch on YouTube, especially non-Civ related? So, back when I first got into YouTube, Hat Films was the big one, and I watched a lot of Yogscast stuff, a lot of their Minecraft stuff. I watched their Civilization channel for a long time. Actually, I was watching the Civilization channel at the same sort of time that I started playing. I think they now do Armchair Admirals rather than just having Civilization generally. But, like, that's kind of what I used to watch. I watched Markiplier back when he started, back when he had like single figure million subscribers rather than double digits. So he was quite interesting, but there's lots of stuff gets popped up on my sort of base. I do try and keep up with a lot of the Civ 6 YouTubers generally, so I follow and watch a lot of what Bose puts out, and Sedux and Otter and the crew, the Civ show, that sort of stuff. I do try and keep in touch with all of that as well. And Critical Role, I watch a lot of, actually I podcast, listen to that one these days, and High Rollers is the Yogscast D&D as well, so I listen to that. Lots of stuff. When you do a lot of editing, and I have to listen to my own voice for large periods of time, I tend to have to listen to a lot of podcasts, so that tends to be more of what I do these days. Imagine Ursa Ryan on Armchair Admirals, I know it'd be carnage. Generally, if I ever got invited down to Bristol, I'd love to do that. That'd be great fun. Maybe as we pick up some subscribers, you can all sort of like petition them for me. But that is about it. I'm sorry if your question sort of fell through the cracks and wasn't answered. If you did and want to ask me something, come to Discord and let me know. I hope you've enjoyed the game in the background. It's been playing along. I'm not actually sure what I played because I filmed the game after I did this, so whatever it was, I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe I'll ask the people that are watching this live what they want me to play. Like, hey, let's do that. That could be fun. Until then, thank you all for your support. Having you guys all around is wonderful and it's amazing, and I don't know what I'd do without you. From the bottom of my heart, keep watching or I'll find you and I'll subscribe to you. See you later. Bye! And finally, a very special shout out goes to Scott Stratton, Major King Kong, Matthew Wilkinson, Salty Tech, Midnight Oil, Trevor Askby, Paul Coffey, Senjit, Kroger Brand, Trail Mix, Alex Noob, Cinnamon Beard and Portland for all of your support on Patreon, as well as everybody else who comments and likes. Thank you!